Hello, Chicago. Welcome in to a wild new episode of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Sometimes you think you know what you're going to be talking about before a show starts, and sometimes you just basically have to rewrite the whole show on the fly. That is what we are going to be doing tonight. The Cubs shocked the baseball world earlier this afternoon. Craig Counsell is going to be the new manager for the Chicago Cubs. Coming down the short trip down I-94 from Milwaukee. Now he's going to be managing on the north side. What does this mean for the Cubs as we get into the offseason? What does this mean as they get into hot stove season? The GM meetings are starting this week. The winter meetings will be coming up here in just a few weeks. And free agency is right around the corner. What does this mean for the Cubs going forward? We will break it all down. But it is also a day after a Bears game. We're not going to forget about the Bears either. We've got to react to everything that happened down in the Bayou yesterday. And now that there's a short week coming up, are we going to see Justin Fields this week, or are we going to have to wait one more week? All that plus a lot more coming up. Buckle it on up, everybody. Let's go. Hello and good evening, everyone. Once again, I am your host, Adam Karnick. Welcome in to Chi-Town Weekly. We have got a ton to go over here tonight. Baseball being the primary news of the day. We will kick things off there, but then I promise we will get into Bears coverage. We will get into Bears coverage as well, and also we'll get around some college roundup, and I want to talk a little bit about the Blackhawks as well before we get out of here. But we have tons, absolutely tons to get into. So, without any further ado, let's get this thing started. And of course, we need to acknowledge our sponsor here at the radio station. That is Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on. All you have to do is visit planetjerky.net to place your order. Anything ranging from savory on their classic barbecue all the way up to the intense heat of Carolina Reaper. And I absolutely love the packaging. Everything comes in an astronaut bag with, you've got a little floss in there to go with your jerky, and then also some fun facts on the back of the packaging. Once again, huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. IE Sports Radio for the last 9.5 years now has brought you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up with the latest in sports and with our shows. Also, check out our daily updated website, iesportsradio.com, for sports news, the IE Sports Radio blog, our Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month, and pages dedicated to each of our shows, our IE Sports Radio community forum, and stop by the shop and check out the merchandise. Thank you for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. I mentioned that you can follow along with the radio station on all the social media platforms at IE Sports Radio. This show is also available for you also on X, or formerly known as Twitter, at IESRC, or you can follow along with me directly on X. I am at Adam_Karnick. The news of the day, that's where we absolutely have to start, is with the Chicago. Oh, and if you are listening here live tonight on Monday night, hop on Spreaker.com, hop on into the chat room. Taryn Rodriguez is there. Good evening, Adam. Have an awesome show. And he starts singing Go Cubs Go. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs did something smart today. We will get into that here in just a second. Follow along on Spreaker. We can interact and have some fun in the chat room that way. But also, or if you're listening later on in the week, whether it's on iHeartRadio or Spreaker, YouTube, Spotify, any of the other ways where you can find our content, or you just want to sit back and listen, thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. So the Cubs. The Cubs absolutely just shocked everybody today with the announcement that Craig Counsell is going to be the new manager of the Chicago Cubs. Counsell, most recently of the Milwaukee Brewers. He has spent significant time there as a manager. He became a free agent at the end of this past season, and then all thought was he was either going to go back to Milwaukee or he was going to go possibly out to New York and manage the Mets. He had connections and ties out there. Instead, out of nowhere, he signs with the Cubs to be the new Cubs manager, signing a record-breaking 5-year, $40 million deal. The average of $8 million a year not only makes Counsell the highest paid manager right now, it also makes Counsell the highest paid manager in Major League Baseball history. The prior best was Joe Torre in the early 2000s. Craig Counsell comes, he's a finalist for the National League Manager of the Year. So this is absolutely an upgrade for the Cubs. He is especially with Terry Francona retiring, Counsell's arguably the best manager in baseball right now. Counsell has spent the last 9 years as manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. He has a record of 707 and 625, which would put him as one of the best managers in Milwaukee Brewers history, if not the best manager in Brewers history. He won the National League Central 3 times over that 9-year span, and he made the playoffs 5 of the last 6 seasons. Never made it to the World Series. They did make it to the National League Championship Series in 2018. I mentioned that there was some talk, there was some consideration that he might go out to be the manager of the Mets. He had connections to that organization with their general manager, David Stearns. But the Mets decided to go in another direction, and then the Cubs swooped in and got Counsell. I know Counsell lives in the Milwaukee area, and I know there had been talk towards the end of the season that Counsell really did not want to uproot his family. I understand that he's got, I believe, it's a daughter in high school still, and he didn't want to uproot his family. So there was some, I wonder if that didn't play in the decision to not be the manager of the New York Mets, that he would have been too far away from his family for too much time. But being able to manage the Cubs, that's doable. You could still be with your family and make that commute. It's just straight down 94 from Milwaukee to Chicago. It's a little bit of a drive, sure. It's a little bit of a drive to go from Milwaukee to Chicago, to do that every single day. I mean, you're talking that's 90 miles every day, one way every day. But at the same time, even if you come up with something halfway in between or something, it's a heck of a lot easier to make that work than it is to, all right, I'm going to go live in New York for 6 months and I'll see my family, when the season's over, or hey, the Mets come to Milwaukee once to play the Brewers. I'll see him for 3 days while I'm in there. He'll be able to still be connected with his family in a meaningful way this way, and still able to get back and forth to work. Heck, they might even have a private, some private transportation for him in some way to make that a little easier. But this is a monster of a signing for the Cubs. It absolutely, unequivocally, as the GM meetings are set to begin in baseball tomorrow, it absolutely means the Cubs are going to be players. They are pushing their chips into the middle of the table. They are indicating that they're going to be aggressive. They're going to spend. I don't know. There's a big list of some big time free agents this offseason. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani, formerly of the pitcher / outfielder / DH for the Angels, is going to be available. Cody Bellinger from the Cubs. Does that mean they might be pursuing him to come back? We'll find out. Marcus Stroman opted out of his deal with the Cubs over the weekend. Might that mean they become a little more aggressive in trying to re-sign him? I don't know. I don't know if Stroman would want to come back. The message he put out on Instagram sure as heck felt like a goodbye that he put out there. But, Josh Hader, one of the best relievers who was there in Milwaukee with Counsell. He got a qualifying offer today, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's gonna sign it. It could mean that he heads into free agency and that becomes that. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, but you got to believe that the Cubs are going to be, when you're spending the most in MLB history on a manager, you can't turn around and be cheap then in acquiring talent to make things work for him. Obviously, they need to address pitching. You've got to address that bullpen. You've got to address the starting rotation in both areas there. You've got to figure out something at corner infield, either first or third base. Jeimer Candelario can play one of them. If Cody Bellinger is okay with being a full-time first baseman, do you put him there? If Bellinger's not, do you put him at center field and you keep Pete Crow Armstrong down for another year down in the minors? Do you how do you address these things? What do you do? Who do you go get? now's not the time to be cheap, and the Cubs have shown that it looks like they're going to be ready to spend, especially after signing the manager to a record year deal. The flip side of this, of course, is that in order for Counsell to get the job, this meant that David Ross had to be let go from the job. And this was, just about a month after David Ross got a very strong vote of confidence from the front office that, hey, you're going to be the guy. You are going to be the man here. We are happy with you. The Cubs Jed Hoyer released a statement today. I'm going to read it in full. Quote, "Today we made the difficult decision to dismiss David Ross as our major league manager. On behalf of the Cubs organization, we express our deep gratitude for David's contributions to our club, both on and off the field. First as a player and then as a manager, David continually showcased his ability to lead. David's legacy will be felt in Chicago for generations, and his impact to our organization will stack up with the legends that came before him." End quote. Ultimately, David Ross finishes with a record of 262 and 284 as manager of the Cubs in 4 seasons. He led them to a division title in the 2020 62-game 2020 campaign. And then he only finished with a winning record one other time. That was this year, going 83 and 79, and they missed out on the playoffs. So it's a mixed bag for him as a manager. Personally, I was not upset with the job that he did. I had no problem with, a month ago, Hoyer and Ricketts saying that they were planning on bringing Ross back, that they were happy with the job David Ross was doing. This has got to be a major punch to the gut for David Ross getting fired today. This isn't just losing your job when you weren't expected to. Ross was groomed by the Cubs organization specifically for this managerial job. They had him, after he retired as a player, he took that year off to do his world tour, Dancing with the Stars and doing some work with ESPN in the broadcast booth, having some fun, going on the talk shows, all that. But then he went to work for the Cubs front office so that he could learn the ropes behind the scenes a little bit. They groomed him specifically, not just to be a baseball manager, but to be the Chicago Cubs manager. And to lose that job is one thing. To lose the job not because of you not performing the job well enough, but because somebody better happened to come along and become available, so they decided they'd rather have him than you. No offense to you. That's got to be a really special kind of pain. I know when I got home tonight, I mentioned the news to my wife, and she immediately got very defensive for for David Ross, and was kind of how dare the Cubs do this to him after everything he's done for them as a player and as a manager, and they treat him like this. She was very upset. And I don't blame her. I wouldn't blame Ross if he's upset. That's a hard, harsh reality. I mean, he woke up this morning fully expecting, I imagine, to be manager of the Cubs, that he was going to be preparing for the 2024 season, and now he's unemployed. And now what do you do? Do you... There are some managerial spots open. Do you try and go work one of those? Do you take a bench coach role, or do you kind of wash your hands of the game? What do you do here? All of a sudden, you have to very quickly come to grasp again with your sports mortality. The other thing that came to me right away when I heard the story was, I thought of when they hired Joe Madden back in 2015, and Joe Madden unexpectedly became available, and Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer both just pounced on it, even though they already had Ricky Renteria installed as the manager, and he had been there just the one season. They immediately, it was, Ricky, sorry, you're gone. We've got somebody better has come available. Thanks. Goodbye. So, David Ross now, he could reach out to Ricky Renteria and get some comfort there, I imagine. But it's going to be the offseason has just begun for the Cubs, and it's only going to become more interesting as the GM meetings begin in earnest tomorrow, and then the more traditional MLB hot stove offseason starts to take its place. From one coach getting fired to another one that should be getting fired. We are going to take a break, but then on the other side of the break, we, of course, have to talk about the Bears game that happened yesterday. The Bears down in New Orleans, struggling yet again. Ugh. Can we put the Tyson Bagent thing to rest now? Are we good to do that? We will discuss that plus more about the Bears on the other side of this break. You are listening to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Do you love college football? And do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college and the CCCAA and the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FBS? Well, then look no further. Join myself, Larry B., and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza, each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? You're listening to IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your favorite West Coast Wisconsinite, Bernie Bango, and if you're a cheesehead, come listen to my show, Big Cheese Sports, where we road trip around America's Dairyland previewing, reviewing, predicting, debating, and digging into all that is Wisconsin sports at the college and pro levels. Join me on IE Sports Radio, Sundays at 1 p.m. Central Standard. Bernie out.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the Panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a down south education on Florida sports and athletics. It's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Well, what is up, Carolina Nation? This is John Felipe of the Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas, right here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I'm reminding you to tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern for the latest in Carolina sports, whether it's the Panthers that keep on pounding, the fly natures of the Hornets, the storming Hurricanes, the battle of the Blues with Duke and UNC, the fight of the Clemson Tigers, or the amazing atmosphere of any Carolina college. I'm talking App State, I'm talking ECU. I've got you covered. Once again, tune in for the Carolina Cast with me, John Felipe, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And of course, the Carolina Panthers will be the upcoming opponent for the Chicago Bears this week. Thursday Night Football rears its ugly head yet again. So if you want to catch the post-game analysis of that, you can hear John on Friday evening, 6 o'clock Central Time, as he will be breaking down from the Carolina side of things the Bears-Panthers game on Thursday night. Also, of course, you'll be able to hear the game over on our sister station, USRN, on Thursday night, as Matthew Owens will be on the call there of that one as the Bears take on the Panthers. Will it be Justin Fields in that game? God, I hope so. Man, I hope so. As let's get into that game from yesterday for the Bears. You got to start with the turnovers, right? You've got to start with the 5 turnovers. You are never going to win a game when you're -5 in the turnover takeaway differential. You're just never going to win that game. And Eberflus, of course, is famously, that's the T in the hits principle, is taking care of the football. And they struggled to do that yesterday. Bajan in particular struggled to do that, especially in the fourth quarter. What was it in the fourth quarter? There wasn't a single play for either team that was run on the New Orleans side of midfield yesterday in the fourth quarter. It was the whole fourth quarter was just played in Bears territory, whether it was the Bears holding the ball or the Saints holding the ball. Yes, there were good things from that game yesterday. Cole Kmet, oh my gosh. Some fantastic catches for him. Tevin Jenkins, oh my, he was looking to hurt some people yesterday. Tevin Jenkins was playing mad from his right guard spot. That is one thing when we've gotten to see Jenkins and Darnell Wright next to each other. Boy, the right side of the Bears offensive line, you feel good about that going forward, that they've got something there. Mike Pat hopping in the chat room. Seems like I could need a good glass of wine. Anything you'd recommend for drowning my Bears sorrows? But also in the plus category, Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney had an excellent, especially in the first half, had an excellent game. Easily his best game of the season. The catch he made, I believe it was in the second quarter, where he came out of the backfield and then made several defenders miss and turned what looked like it was going to be about a 7 or 8 yard gain into suddenly the Bears were on the other side of the field. Leroy Jenkins. I'm not sure what prompted Mike Pat to reference that, but I'm here for it. Sure. I love a good reference like that. So, I'm guessing it had to be Tevin Jenkins made you think of that, which Tevin Jenkins played a little bit like an under control Leroy Jenkins a little bit there, where it was he got done with his block and then it was, all right, where's the next guy? I am not done hitting people. Where is the next guy? Find me a linebacker, find me a safety, find me somebody I need to block. Jenkins was on a mission yesterday, and I saw Pro Football Focus. I talk about them a lot, how you really need to take everything with Pro Football Focus with a grain of salt. Their methodology is weird, especially when it comes to line play. So take it for what it's worth. Tevin Jenkins was the highest graded offensive lineman in the NFL yesterday, according to PFF. He had a 91.9 grade from them. That's his career best from them. Best Bear O-lineman, best O-lineman in the NFL yesterday. So, they had that. I'm ready to be done with Bagent. The story is still amazing. I want to preface this. He belongs. Make no mistake about it. Bagent belongs in the NFL. I'm not saying kick him out. I'm not saying cut him. I'm not saying send him to the USFL or whatever they're going to call it now that they've merged with the XFL. I'm not saying send him to Canada or anything like that. He belongs in the NFL. But he's a backup. He's not the savior, okay? I know there are a lot of Bears fans that are ready to be done with Justin Fields. I'm not there, personally. And I know there's a lot of Bears fans that are, well, why are you writing off Tyson Bagent after just 3 starts when you're refusing to write off Justin Fields after 40 starts, or whatever it is? For a few things. One, you know that Justin Fields' ceiling is way higher than Tyson Bagent's. The pedigree speaks to that. You don't wind up at Ohio State by accident, by mistake. You don't wind up in a Power 5 conference college football program by accident. You don't wind it. You have to suck. You have to be really, really, really good to be a bench warmer at a Power 5 conference. So to be a starter at a Power 5 school, you've got to have talent to do that. Whereas Bagent's coming from D2. You don't wind up D2 simply because they ran out of scholarships at the D1 level, especially for a quarterback. Nobody's gonna, man, you should have been here 5 minutes ago. I had to give my last scholarship to a kicker. No, they rip up the scholarship for the kicker and they go give it to the quarterback. That's how that works. So there's more pedigree, there's more potential for greatness there with Fields. Also, look at what Fields did just the last 2 full games he played before he got hurt. He threw 8 damn touchdowns against 1 interception. You know that it's there. The skill is there. Also, look at the 6-game stretch last season. And I've heard the argument of, well, they lost all those games. Oh, look at his 1-loss record. A 1-loss record in the NFL has very little to do with the quarterback by himself. There's so much that goes on. A quarterback by himself can't just be the end-all, be-all when the rest of the team is actively tanking. So I'm not out on Fields yet. I'm at the point where I recognize and I realize and I am come to grips with he is no longer in control of his own situation in Chicago. That even if he comes out and balls out Thursday night all the way through the rest of the season, that it's still very likely that Eberflus et al. Get canned, and the next guy that comes in might say, yeah, I want my own guy. I want my own guy. I don't want Justin. And in which case, you're Ryan Poles, you say, all right, then we'll trade Justin, we'll recoup some of our assets here, and let's identify who you want and let's go get him. So I've come to grips with that reality. But it doesn't change the fact that I still am high on Justin Fields. And Taryn puts it very nicely. Teams in need of a quarterback would kill to have Justin Fields. I still think wherever he winds up going, I hope he knocks it dead, with the exception of one team, and I'm not going to say them. Hint, hint, hint. They're up north. It's the same fan base that is now upset because the Cubs just poached their manager. I'll leave it to you to figure out who I'm talking about. The other thing with the Bears that we've got to talk about is the Montez Sweat deal. It happened after we talked last week. So this is my first opportunity to speak on it. And Mike, I'm glad you're here in the chat room. Mike Pat, host of Let's Whine About DMV Sports, talking about all things Commanders, amongst other things. Does that team rhyme with say slackers? They might. Yeah, it's a decent bet there. Yeah. So we got to talk about Montez Sweat. First of all, I was as surprised as I think everybody else was when they made that deal. There's two ways to look at it. First of all, is Montez Sweat an upgrade for the Bears? Absolutely. There's no way you can argue that he's not. The team as a whole, before yesterday, had 10 sacks as a team. Montez Sweat by himself has 6.5 on the season. So he damn near has equaled what the Bears pass rush has done as a collective unit this season. The Bears desperately need help at pass rushers. So I want to preface this all by Montez Sweat is absolutely an upgrade for the Bears at pass rusher. There is no reason under the sun why this team should have been buying at the trade deadline. They were 2-6 heading into the week. They're now 2-7. I know they're not mathematically eliminated. I know that the NFC as a whole is not very strong. As we look at the standings as a whole, the Bears are 3 games back of a wild card spot as we sit here with effectively 8 weeks to go. But there's so many teams in front of them. And teams that have tiebreakers against them. The Vikings, the Buccaneers, the Packers are all in front of them. Yes, they would have a tiebreaker over the Commanders, but right now the Falcons would have a tiebreaker over them. The Rams, the Giants, for crying out loud, have a tiebreaker over the Bears. If you can't leapfrog the Giants, then what are we doing here, guys? What? This team is not worth this collection. The 2023 Bears are not worth fortifying assets for. Well, all right. Well, you gave up draft cap. You made the trade so that you could negotiate with Montez Sweat directly and exclusively because he's a pending free agent, and you were worried that either he wasn't going to hit free agency, or if he did, you wouldn't be able to convince him to come to you. Newsflash, Ryan Poles. The Bears have the most money to spend this offseason. Montez Sweat is, for all intents and purposes, I'm looking at next year, he's going to be 28 years old, and he has never in his career had double-digit sacks. He's a good, not great, pass rusher. If you can't persuade him to come to you in free agency by waving a few extra dollars in his face more than any of the other teams are willing to do, then you go get the other guy that looks just like him. He's not irreplaceable. This isn't 2018 Khalil Mack we're talking about here. And again, Sweat's an upgrade. He's a fine player. But he's not somebody that is going to change the fortunes of your franchise. Case in point, and I love how optimistic the NFL always is with their apps when they send notifications to me of, we really want you to click on this. They sent one this morning that it was, Montez, did you know Montez Sweat had 4 quarterback pressures yesterday? That led the team. Whoop-da-freaking-do. It resulted in 0 sacks and 0 takeaways for the defense. To quote Chris Farley, well, la-di-frickin-da. I just can't get excited over that. I'm sure that he'll do better as we go through the season. I'm sure some of it was he was still learning who the heck was standing next to him. You know, he was still learning guys' names, coaches, teammates, I'm sure. So I'm not trying to grade Montez Sweat on a player by the game that happened yesterday. But to give up a second-round pick, Mike puts it perfectly in the chat. The Bears just don't seem to like early second-round picks. You know, they did this for Claypool a year ago, and now they're doing it for Sweat. I do think that this will work out better than the Claypool. That was a disaster. That was an unmitigated disaster of a trade. And unfortunately, the telltale signs were there if you wanted to read them. I didn't want to read them. I'll be straightforward and honest. I did not want to read the tea leaves last year with Claypool. I wanted to believe that it could turn into something. This is not that. The floor for Montez Sweat is so much higher. You know that he's going to be a consummate professional. You know that he's going to give you, that he's going to buy in, especially now that he's got a $98 million deal. You know he's going to buy in. So I'm not worried about that side of it. But his ceiling is so much lower. He's never produced double-digit sacks. And he's got 6.5 on the year, which could indicate that the Commanders sold very high on him, that they got absolutely the maximum possible value for him. That, you know, he was never going to be worth more than that. A top 40 pick. You know, Chase Young, another pass rusher that the Commanders traded, is a better player. They only got a 3rd-round pick for him. And I know there's injury history and injury concerns there with Young, and that probably was more, that played a role in it, I'm sure. But that was one of my initial reactions was, oh my God, Young was only worth a 3rd, and you gave up a 2nd for Sweat? What are we doing here? Had you given up a 4th for Sweat, I'd have been all right. Okay, I get it. You're buying your early negotiating rights. Okay, I understand what you're doing. I see what you're doing here. I don't fully agree with it, but I see what you're doing. I can live with it. Even if it was a 3rd-round pick, all right. All right, fine. Here you go, Washington. Have a 3rd-round pick. I'm not happy about this, but fine. I'll do it. But a 2nd? A pick that is almost certainly going to be in the top 40 for a guy that when you're going to be competitive is going to be in his late 20s or early 30s and has never produced double-digit sacks, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And then, too, we've talked in the past about how it's so nice that Poles understands the value of draft picks. That he's stocked up and he's loaded up on these picks, and now 2 draft cycles in a row, he's traded away a second-round pick. Yeah, you can argue that hey, they still have 2 first-round picks, and that's great. You know, it's he's only trading away second-round picks, which is an improvement, but it's an improvement the same way that hobbling around on crutches is better than being paralyzed from the waist down. You know, you're not totally crippled, but you're not healthy either. This isn't healthy for the organization. Second round picks. Cole Kmet was a second round pick. Jalen Johnson was a second round pick. Tevin Jenkins was a second round pick. Look at Matt Forte going way back was a second round pick. There's value to be had in the second round, and you gave that up for somebody that's not worth it. And last thing I'm going to say on this, and then we're going to be done with it here. Yes, you still have 2 first-round picks, and they're probably both going to be in the top 10. But after that, you might not draft again until outside the top 70. Depending on the way this season finishes up and where the Bears finish, it's very conceivable that the Bears finish somewhere with their own pick being around that 8 or 9 spot, which then calculated down the road to the third round means their next pick after the top 10 could be at 71. That is just too damn big of a gap of players that you are missing out on when you have all these holes to fill in this roster. So, tough deal all around for the Bears. Okay, we're going to take one more quick break. Set Point went on earlier today due to the Chargers playing in the Monday night game right now. So we don't have Set Point right after us, so I've got a little bit of room here. So we're going to take a break and then come back for just a little bit to wrap up the show. You are listening to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Locke.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
hockey fans. I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports, exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
Hey yo, what's up? It's your man Bishop, the voice of This Is KC Sports, the show where we go over the Chiefs, the Royals, KC Current, Sporting KC, MU, and oh yeah, if we got time, we'll even throw in some of that KU stuff from my people on the 913 South. Come and hang out with us every Sunday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
IE Sports Radio fans, it's your boy, the SoCal Saint, the host of the premier professional wrestling podcast online today, the IE Elite Wrestling Show. If you're a fan and have a passion for the world of professional wrestling, this is the show for you. I take you inside the ropes with all the athleticism, high-flying, and hard-hitting action, and then we take it backstage with all the backstage drama and backstabbing that goes on in the world of professional wrestling today. If something's going on in the world of professional wrestling, rest assured, the SoCal Saint knows what's going on, and he's going to let you know too. If you're a fan, check us out every Tuesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on IE Sports Radio. The IE Elite Wrestling Show, your direct feed for all that is professional wrestling, on the only network that is your direct feed for all that is sports. Check us out.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly, everybody. Adam Kernick here with you for just a couple of more minutes. No set point tonight. They went earlier in the afternoon. So we've got a little bit of room to go a little long here tonight before we turn things over to Where You At Sports later tonight at 10 o'clock Central. They will be having a much happier discussion of the Saints-Bears game that happened yesterday afternoon, I'm sure. You know, when your defense gets 5 takeaways, that's a lot more fun than watching your offense have 5 giveaways. Before we got to my final thoughts of the night, I did want to quickly do a college football roundup. I haven't done this for a couple of weeks, so I wanted to really quickly here, talk about some of our local teams. Larry B in the chat, excited because of Western Illinois. Yeah, we'll get to the Leathernecks here in just a minute. Starting in the Big Ten, Northwestern, they played at Wrigley Field this week against Iowa. It didn't matter. The Wildcats still lost 10-7 to Iowa in that game. Northwestern only 7 points on the afternoon. Held Iowa to just 4 of 12 on third down. This was a defensive 339 yards of total offense. Neither team threw the ball for over 100 yards in the game, but ultimately it was Iowa that got more points on the board and won it 10-7. Illinois, on the other hand, did get a win, went up to Minnesota and beat the Golden Gophers 27-26. A winning touchdown pass by the backup quarterback, John Paddock, a sixth-year graduate transfer from Ball State, chirp, chirp, came in the final minute in relief and threw a game-winning touchdown pass. Was just 3 for 3 on the day, but a 46-yard touchdown pass to Isaiah Williams with 50 seconds left gave Illinois the surprise win in that one. So Illinois wins, Northwestern loses. They are both at the bottom of the Big Ten West. Only Purdue has a worse in-conference and overall record, so they're both hanging out at the bottom of the Big Ten West. Over in MAC country, of course, last week they played on Tuesday night on Halloween. Northern Illinois lost to Central Michigan in Central Michigan, 37-31, the final score there. Central Michigan got out to a 24-3 lead at the half. 28 second half points by Northern Illinois, but it was ultimately just too big of a deficit for the Huskies to overcome there in that one. Larry and Taryn are having a little bit of fun. They host, you may have heard me play the drop earlier, the 3 and Out college edition here on IE Sports Radio. Both Larry and Taryn host that show together, and they have a lot of fun talking some D3 and D2 level college sports as well, as Larry's peppering us with some Division III scores. Aurora absolutely destroyed Lakeland 70-14. Illinois Wesleyan unfortunately took on number 1 North Central in Division III, and Larry, that's got to be a basketball score. There's no way this is a football score. North Central 83, Illinois Wesleyan 26. I refuse to believe that is a football score. That is a basketball score that they simply played on a football field. That is my story, and I am sticking to it. You cannot change my mind. Down at the FCS, the 1AA level, if you will, we had in the Missouri Valley last week. Not so good for most of the Illinois teams. Northern Iowa absolutely destroyed Western Illinois 50-6. Western Illinois still winless on the season. Southern Illinois also fell to South Dakota over the weekend 14-7, the third loss of the year for SIU. Illinois State, though, did get the win, 36-35 over Missouri State, and for Illinois State, that was their head coach's 100th win of his career. I saw that come across X last week, so congratulations to Illinois State on that win. As we take a look over in the Missouri Valley standings, SIU with that loss falls significantly from the top of the conference down into the middle of the pack at 3-3 in the conference, tied with Illinois State, and then of course Western Illinois is 0-9 on the year and 0-6 in conference. Not the only 0-9 team, however, Indiana State is still down there as well. So there's the chance that Western could get out of the basement before things are all said and done there. So I wanted to give just a quick college wraparound there a little bit. Before we get out of here, one more quick story before we go. The Blackhawks over the weekend, they had themselves a very interesting weekend overall. They managed to defeat the Panthers on Saturday night 5-2. Connor Bedard scored a goal in that one. Taylor Hall scored his first Chicago Blackhawk goal. To me, the number one star of the game, he didn't win the number one star of the game. That went to Taylor Hall. For me personally, though, it was Peter Mrazek in net for the Hawks. He stopped 38 of 40 shots, really kept the Hawks in that one. Didn't give up a goal until the third period. Really had a strong game. But they then followed that up by losing against the New Jersey Devils 4-2 yesterday. Just got off. Taylor Hall got his second goal of the year right away, but then the Devils scored twice in the first period and scored two more times in the third period to overall win the game 4-2. The Blackhawks then, apparently there's something going around in the United Center. You lose an early season game and you then call a team meeting. The Blackhawks called a team meeting after that one, trying to regroup a little bit and try to reset a little bit as a team after that. Unfortunately, that's not the only reason the Blackhawks find themselves in the news today. Word came out over the weekend. It was originally reported by the Chicago Sun-Times. Then the Chicago Tribune picked it up, and ESPN has run with it as well. You may remember a couple of years ago, the former video coach Brad Aldrich that sexually assaulted a minor league Blackhawks player, the story of the Black Ace, that eventually turned into a story that just absolutely rocked the hockey world. Well, you may remember from the original report that there were two Black Aces. There were two Black Ace players. The first one has been identified. The second player still is unidentified. He went in the report as Black Ace 1. Black Ace 1 has has also now sued the franchise over the Brad Aldrich story. So while there's not necessarily new, Kyle Beach was the original Black Ace who brought everything to light in the first place. Now Black Ace 1 is suing the organization basically for the exact same thing that happened with Brad Aldrich, all the same horrible, despicable, evil things that Brad Aldrich did to Kyle Beach, basically is why the team is being sued by Black Ace 1. Forcing him to watch pornography, trying to get him to engage in sexual acts, trying to pay him for sexual acts, all those fun, wonderful things. Hopefully the team does the right thing and takes care of Black Ace 1 without things getting any uglier than they need to. Larry B in the chat room. If Western Illinois wins a game, Adam will blank. If Western Illinois doesn't win a game, Adam will blank. I said over the weekend, if Western Illinois wins a game, I will dedicate an entire segment to the game and to the win there. If they lose out, the Leathernecks are the Leathernecks. They're going to continue to be in obscurity. Taryn, yeah, unfortunately, the Black Ace story for the Blackhawks unfortunately has come back, and I will keep up with it. We don't have any new. It doesn't seem like there's any new information really with it, other than simply the second Black Ace, who was mentioned in the original report from several years ago, has decided to take the courage to step forward and try to take action against the team, if for no other reason, to make sure that this never happens again. It shouldn't happen again, but let's just make sure that the Blackhawks learn their lesson and this does not happen again. All right, that is going to do it for our show here tonight. Thanks for sticking with me. Went a little long. We had some room to work with a little bit tonight again because set point was earlier in the day. Shout outs and thank yous, of course, to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Check them out, planetjerky.net. The Volcanic Jalapeno, I would highly recommend that if you like something with a little kick. If you just want to go pure savory, the classic barbecue comes highly recommended by my wife. She almost literally inhaled the bag that we got, and it barely survived 2 days here in the house. Thank you to Larry B. and all you do with the hard work here at the station, keeping everybody in line, making sure we're all keeping up with all of our to-dos and taskings with the show. Thank you to Mike Pat for hanging out in the chat with us tonight. Thank you, of course, to Taryn Rodriguez hanging out in the chat as you do each and every single week. Finally, thank you for coming and listening to the show, making this part of your week, whether it's live here on Monday nights on Spreaker, whether it's on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, wherever it might be that you listen to this show. Thank you. Tell your friends, tell your family, share the links with them. Help this show and help this station to grow. I really do appreciate your support in this. Next week, we'll have a Bears game to discuss from Thursday night. We will see how the Bears help improve their draft status, whether it's directly with their own pick or indirectly from knocking Carolina's pick a little further down the pecking order a little bit. We'll see where that goes. Next week, we got to figure out what the heck this in-season NBA tournament thing was. We'll do all that and more. Until next week, be safe, be good. We'll see you next time.